So, you want to off-road your Subaru? Well, today I'm going to talk about 5 mods that'll help you take your Subaru off-road and get you farther. For those that are unfamiliar, my name is Chase, and this is my 2004 Subaru Forester that I built for off-road, and we've done some pretty epic things with it, including taking on some of the hardest trails here locally in Alberta, as well as in BC. On this video, I'll be taking you through 5 different modifications I have on this Subaru and why they are so important if you choose to take your Subaru off-road. So let's go. And well, our first one is by far the most important if you like keeping your Subaru running on the road and on the trail. And of course, I'm talking about skid plates. They protect both your engine, transmission, and rear differential, all the things that keep you moving while on the trail from rocks, debris, and anything else that possibly turn the liquids from the inside of your car onto the ground. And with that being said, you probably understand why skid plates are so important for your off-road Subaru build. They ensure that you can not only explore the trail, but make it home after the adventure. There are a couple different options for skid plates though, and it really depends on what you plan on doing. You could choose something lighter if you plan on using them less frequently and have them more for the peace of mind. This will include the lighter weight 1/8 aluminum skid plates. But if you're looking to use them a little bit more often, and still want to keep the weight down, the 3/16 aluminum skid plate would be great for you. And if you're like me and really want to push the limits of your off-road Subaru and plan on using a skid plate all the time, I would recommend a 1/4-inch aluminum skid plate. You might notice that all of these are aluminum skid plates. And that's because, well, these Subarus are a little bit lighter and typically don't require steel skid plates. You can get away with a little bit lighter of a steel skid plate, but unfortunately, there aren't a lot of options on the market. So we typically stick with aluminum skid plates. And your next modification is almost as important as skid plates, and that is a new set of tires. Tires play such an important role in making sure that no matter the condition, your tires will be able to grip up and keep you moving on the trail. Not only are they important to tackle the trail, but they're also important to ensure you make it in one piece. A good set of tires can make or break the day, especially on rocky terrain where punctures are possible. This is where an all-terrain can make the difference over an all-season tire, getting you through the thick and thin and getting you home. Now for tires, there are a ton of different options, but a few general recommendations are to size down your wheel as much as possible, but ensure they still clear the brakes to give you the biggest sidewall. This ensures that you not only get a comfortable ride on the trail once you air down, but you also get a lot more traction. And speaking of size, there's a pretty good consensus on the biggest tire size possible, without and with modifications on each of the models. A good example of this is the older Subarus running a 215/75 R15. But if you're unsure, check out some of the forums as well as some of the big names in off-road Subarus for tire recommendations. And speaking of tire recommendations, one other thing I would suggest is selecting a P-rated tire. While an LT might sound cool and a little bit tight for these cars, particularly Subarus, you don't need anything heavier than a P-rated tire. It's just going to add a lot more rotational mass and make it a ton noisier on the road. The next modification is one you might not have thought of, but it's just important as the first two, and that is some form of communication, particularly radios. Radios can play a critical role, especially in group runs, where you'll be communicating to each other's different locations, possible hazards on the road, as well as helping each other through tight situations. And when things go wrong, they also play a critical role in making sure you have a form of communication. And finally, if you're like me and love exploring the back roads of British Columbia or other regions like Ontario, these play a critical role in ensuring your own safety on logging roads as you radio call on the road. If you're looking for more information on how exactly you can radio call on a logging road, check out my video linked above where I talk about exactly that. And talking about radios, what kind of radio works best for off-road? Well, there is CB, GMRS, and ham. Typically, you'd be sticking with the GMRS, and that's due to its wide range of applications as well as the ability to get one easily without obtaining a license. Not only that, they're also much more widely used than the older CB radios. Now, for your off-road Subaru build, you do have a couple options. You can go with something handheld like this, or you can do an install and a mount like I've done on my Forester. Both have their pros and cons. Well, a portable one might be easier when you're helping guide your friends on the trail. One installed in your car might have a better range as well as some additional features. And if you do think you're going to be doing a lot of trail runs in the future, it might be beneficial to invest in not only a portable radio, but one installed in your car to ensure you have both your bases covered. The next modification is one of those that gives you a ton of different benefits. And well, I'm talking about a lift kit. As I mentioned, a lift kit can do so much. Not only does it improve your departure and arrival angles, but it also gives you additional clearance under the car, as well as room fit bigger tires. And on top of that, depending on what type of lift kit you select, it might also give you additional travel in the suspension, as well as the ability to carry more weight. As I mentioned, there are a couple different options for lifting your Subaru for off-road adventures. The first is a suspension lift kit like I have. And while this provides all the benefits that I listed, unfortunately, it does cost a little bit more, and depending on what you choose, might have some additional maintenance. These include things like coilover as well as strut replacements, and they typically improve the performance of your car off-road. And the second option, well, not as expensive, doesn't really give you the added benefits of improving the suspension overall. And that is, well, a spacer lift. A spacer lift will sit on top of your strut in the wheel wells and give you that lift, but keep the stock suspension. And like I said, it is a little bit more affordable. It is a great way to get started without having to pay the big bucks. And with both these options, you have the ability to select from a 0.5 to a 3-inch lift with no problem. And if you wanted to go to the extreme, you can even select up to a 6-inch lift kit for your Subaru. Although be careful, because as you continue to lift your Subaru, there is going to be more maintenance and more stress on a lot of the components. And the final modification is often an overlooked one. And well, that is a winch. If you're really wanting to push the limits of your off-road Forester, a winch is going to be required. Because let's be honest, when you're having fun, you're going to be getting stuck. And not only is a winch really helpful for those self-recoveries when you're either solo tripping or getting yourself into a tight situation, it also plays a huge role in helping out your friends as they continue to push their limits. And as I mentioned, it is often overlooked, and because of that, there isn't a ton of options for every Subaru. Sometimes you will need a custom bumper like this. Other times, you can go ahead and choose a hidden winch bumper or a cutout for something a little more newer. And because of the Subaru's smaller size, you typically don't need a big 10 or even 12K winch for something like this. And you can typically go with something between a 4 to 6,000 pound winch, which also is nice because loading up a big winch on the front of your Subaru is going to add a ton of weight. And with that being said, I would also recommend going with a synthetic line to ensure that if something breaks, it doesn't become a giant whip. They're also a little easier to maintain, and if you pick up the right tools like a snatch ring and some soft shackles, are a relatively affordable setup that not only allows you to push the limits of your Subarus, but also help others when they decide to get a little bit stuck. There you go. You now know the 5 modifications you need to take your Subaru off-road, including a lift kit, wheels and tires, skid plates, a radio, and a winch. With that being said, down below, let me know what your first modifications were or what you're going to do on your off-road Subaru build. And while you're down there, don't forget to go ahead and check out, well, Flat for Off-Road for all your off-road and adventure Subaru needs here in Canada, as well as the channel perks for some exclusive memberships and behind-the-scenes content as we talk about what we're doing next to my off-road Forester. And with that being said, I'll be seeing you guys in the next adventure.